discussion, ladies and gentlemen, moves into a space that touches every one of us. Payments. From frictionless UPI transfers to contactless cards and cross-border digital rails, AI is transforming how money moves in milliseconds at scale. Joining us now for a high-powered panel on AI in payments, I would like you all to please welcome on stage Ms. Sohini Rajola, Executive Director, Growth, NPCI, Mr. Sandeep Malhotra, Executive Vice President, Core Payments, Asia Pacific, Mastercard, Mr. Mihir Gandhi, Partner, Financial Services, Consulting and FinTech, PwC, India. And this session will be moderated by Ms. Kshama Jain, Director at Kedaara Capital. Let's give these brilliant minds a huge round of applause. Really, I can't hear you. Come on, come on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Great. So, thank you so much for being here. I think we all have watched how India has become a global payment powerhouse. Right? And now we are seeing how AI is transforming all our sectors. And we believe payments will not be left behind. Right? Today, we have gathered here to discuss some of those real-life examples of how AI is transforming payments. So let's dive in. Why don't we start with brief introductions about some of our panelists, and then we'll get down to some of the questions that we have for them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sohini Rajola. I'm the Executive Director for Growth at National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI.
Hi, I'm Sandeep Malhotra. I run payments for Mastercard for Asia Pacific. Pleasure to be here. Now, first, let me tell you why I'm here, and then I'll tell you what does AI mean to me. The reason I'm here is that exactly 31 years ago, when I graduated from the college, I actually took a 26-hour-long train called Pushpak Express from Lucknow to Powai, and I interviewed with L&T. And they basically said, give me one answer, that you will not go to America and take a job in L&T. And I failed that answer. They did not give me a job. So that's the reason I've come back. I'm showing my interest back again, that they should hire me again. That's why I'm here. Panel to bahana hai. And then what does AI mean to me? So why AI? So I want AI to do my dishes and vacuum my floor so that I can focus on art and sciences. But what I've seen today is I'm still doing my dishes and mopping my floor, and AI is doing art and sciences.
Sandeep, you should have stayed here and not gone to America then.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mihir Gandhi. I work with PwC in the consulting space, and I focus on payments and fintech.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we'll first cover the key topic of where AI is getting used in payments. And maybe this is for you, Sandeep. How is AI really transforming customer experience in payments across different payment methods? Would be great if you could share some real-life examples that you've come across for it to make real for our audience here.
Yeah. So first of all, I think this agentic commerce, which could be a buzzword, it could become just like voice commerce. I remember, if you remember when voice commerce came in, that was going to change the world, where Alexa was going to order and make payments, and in reality, 4 transactions happened. But we believe that this agentic commerce is very transformational in nature. I think there was a big transformation from brick and mortar to e-commerce, and e-commerce into agentic commerce. And what does that mean? The whole idea was to convert from cash to digital, And now these transactions are going to go from digital to intelligent. Now, a very grim story could be that, you know what, you could just tell your ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever tools you use to just say, you know what, find me a stolen card from the gray market and order me 10 pairs of shorts from lululemon.com and ship it to me. No, that's the first thing which could happen. So what we want to do is we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that the transactions are safe, secure, and done in a fashion such that in that interface where you are in ChatGPT, you find that Lululemon shorts or trousers or an item from Decathlon. And in that same interface, there is a buy button that when you click on that buy button, that transaction happens in a very secure fashion where you are authenticated. The merchant gets to know that you are using a very secure token, that you have been verified that you are who you are, and then they will get their money back. And then when you bought that black colored shorts, black arrive and not the white arrive. And that's the big change which is going to happen. We think it's going to run in hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars. And we want to make sure that's all done in a safe, secure fashion. And when things go wrong, the consumer is protected. And while it seems very, very simple, and we want to make it very simple for the consumer, the behind the scenes mechanics is very, very complex. And a simple example of that is that when you are on, makemytrip.com and order pretty much or book your entire trip, which is booking a flight, booking a hotel, booking a car rental, Make My Trip has no inventory. It is all served by an airline or a hotel company or a car rental company. We want to mimic that same kind of an experience where you just bought that trip for 5,000 rupees, but it is done a safe and secure fashion, and the merchant gets the money, consumer gets the benefit. All that underlying complexity, we want to abstract that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. That means.
Awesome. No, thank you, Sandeep. Mihir, given you are working with a consulting practice, I'm sure you are helping a lot of your clients do this. Any examples that come to your mind?
I think customers, when we look at AI and how customers impact, I think three things we need to think about. One is convenience. Sandeep has articulated some parts of the convenience in form of how agentic AI can actually help customers pay. We are also looking at hyper-personalization, where AI can potentially personalize the entire experience for the customer and enable him or her to use the most preferred payment form factor that is going to be beneficial to him, which will add the best rewards for him. So nowadays you have a lot of Instagram folks who are advising you on which credit card you should use or which payment instrument you should use to maximize your rewards. But I think if taking a leap into the future, potentially that can also be done with the use of AI, right? So I think that is one aspect. Second is the way you kind of pay from a customer perspective, what suggestions you get. I think that is also going to come in through AI. So recently there was a launch of Comet web browser, which was by Perplexity. And what that does is that overlays the web browser onto a agentic kind of a website, like on Amazon. And I can do the same agentic commerce transaction. And I can say, please find a pair of shoes of Nike for me for, say, less than $50 or $100. And it will find it, it will use my preferred form and pay it. So I think those are the kind of things that we are seeing. So convenience, security, and personalization is something which I believe AI can enable from a customer perspective.
Got it. Sohini, anything to add there further?
The great context. I think the important thing for India is to say most of India pays with UPI, right? So agentic commerce, how is it going to come to UPI? And for many of you who would have been part of the GFF, again, in this same venue a couple of weeks back, we announced a pilot. So take the same example of all of the stuff, the technology, what it can do in the back end, but replace it with what is the real life example? What exactly is this agentic commerce, hyper-personalization? These are all big words. But what do they mean to the majority of the people? Take a person who has just moved, a new graduate, moves to the big city, starts working, wants to make moong dal ka halwa, can again go to the same Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, and say, help me make moong dal ka halwa, and not just gives the recipe, but then says, do you want me to place the order for these ingredients? Because typically this person wouldn't have all of those things handy. And they can go to right now it's a pilot, so it's with a specific merchant. But that's what we see scaling when it will be available across all kinds of merchants. It can go and using something called Reserve Pay, which we had launched with the merchant. And again, it gives the same confidence because the merchant also knows that they're going to get the payment from this device, and it all happens through your UPI payment. So it's a real pilot which is there. So when we talk about AI in payments, there's a lot that is already happening, and it's a matter of time before we'll get that inflection point.
Got it. No, thank you. All of you talked about improving customer experience, right? I think with improvement of customer experience, there is also a risk of fraud which comes in. How are you seeing, again, AI being used to combat fraud and risk management in payments? And maybe, Sohini, if you can start with your experience in NPCI.
It's a great point, Kshama. And I think one that the industry has to address much ahead of doing all of the work that we want to do on experience. Fortunately, this is one place where it's not in the pilot stage. There is a lot of good work that is happening across many players. And at NPCI, obviously, we are in a unique position because we see all of the transfers across multiple payment systems. UPI is one, there's IMPS, there's a bunch of others. And we have actually been running AI-based mule hunter models. Like people know what mule accounts are, and that's a big menace right now. So in fact, on a daily basis, based on graph-based analysis, which uses a very, very advanced AI tools, we actually send out more than, I think, thousands, I'll get the exact number, but thousands of alerts that we send to more than 400 banks every day saying, hey, we are seeing some activity here which does not seem like normal banking activity. And at this point of time, we are seeing accuracy rates of about 65% plus, which means that about 6.5 out of the 10 alerts that we send are actually ones that the bank should have stopped. So, and we've taken that one level further to create a federated AI risk model. So we are going and taking that intelligence, making it sit in the bank's environment, and say, here is the transaction level across the ecosystem, which one bank can't see it, but because we are a network, we can see all of that activity. And we get them to marry it with their own specific risk-based demographic models and fine-tune further any other models that they might. So it's a huge, huge focus, and I think there's lots to be done there, but the good news is there's a lot, it's far more than just in the pilot stage. Like the customer experience is more in the pilot stage, or the actual agentic buying. Using AI for risk modeling is higher up the curve, lots to be done there, but yes, very important element.
Anything that you would like to add, Mihir?
Thanks, Kshama. So I would just like to add on to what Sohini said from a fraud perspective. While a lot has already been done and is being done, I feel the future of AI in terms of tackling frauds can be if it can predict frauds before they actually occur. So I think that's one area where I would want to see some more progress, because honestly, we do it real time or near real time, it's not before it actually occurs. So I think maybe identifying those kind of transaction sets or customers or segments where there could be a possibility of a fraud and an alert is raised even before the transaction happens, I think that is something which would really be of interest and beneficial for all of us. The second point would be in terms of the kind of payment instruments that I'm using, right? So if the AI is able to detect that this kind of payment instrument may be compromised or it could be vulnerable, then potentially it can send an alert to the customer, and the customer may choose not to use. And this is already happening in a way where Google or Apple do tell us that your password can be compromised or is compromised, may be compromised across 8 or 10 websites.
We also give some kind of a risk score. So what you're talking about is possible with the banks because we can give a risk score to say this seems like a high risk, so you can flag it next
But
time
I'm
a
saying for the
transaction
customer,
happens.
right? Make the customer more aware and alert.
Yeah.
I think that's where the real, success will be, or I will really be happy if that happens.
And Sandeep, anything that the networks are doing to really combat, again, fraud is a very big topic for everyone in payments.
Yeah, so if I take a step back, I actually created a bit of a framework as to how we see this agentic payments. So if you bring up the slide, just one slide. Okay. So ideally, we think there are 3 steps. If you could be on an agent, and then there is a user present, or a user is not present, which means that you did a discovery of an item, you search for an item, and you have a buy button, and you clicked on that buy button. Means user is present. And then there is user not present, which is more autonomous in nature, which basically means that you have given an instruction to a Gemini or a ChatGPT to basically say, please buy me this air ticket when the price drops below 3,000 rupees. So when this agent will wake up every few minutes, will ping the website, and when that amount threshold is met, it will buy the item. The merchant won't be very happy because you might bring down that site if they're actually pinging the site, or if you're pinging the merchant agent. But those are the 2 scenarios. The second case is the agent is a good agent or not a good agent. Meaning, the merchant would say, I would allow Gemini and ChatGPT, but I would not allow Perplexity, like Amazon yesterday literally went and sent a lawsuit message to Perplexity. That I will only allow these 2, but I will not allow Mihir's agent. Okay? So that's the other part. And third is the maturity of the merchant. The merchant is saying, I am a good merchant. I will not make any changes to accept an agent commerce or not an agent commerce. Or I am a big merchant like Flipkart, or I am, an Amazon. I will make changes to accept an agentic payment. I will set up another server so you don't come to my website and do all the magic. So that's the 3 conditions we have. And in order to do that, so one is just a regular scenario, 95% of the merchant will not make a change. So there are these entities like a Cloudflare, CrowdStrike, ZS, or whatever. And many of you have noticed that when you go to a merchant site, there is this very annoying thing which comes up saying, please make sure you are a human. Click on this or slide something or whatever. At that stage is where you would decide whether this particular agent is allowed or not. That's where Gemini and ChatGPT will be allowed, the other agents will not be allowed. That's the simplistic thing which will happen. And if Gemini is allowed, then Gemini will go in and will do a form fill, like a guest checkout, will enter a agent token. So we've also given agent a token. And then when it comes to the network, when it comes to the issuer, that they know this is an agent token. That agent token is authenticated. Means first level authentication is done. Second level of authentication will also be done through an OTP or authentication. So life is great. You could have an Amazon or a Flipkart or another big merchant, which basically says, you know what? I will let this agent talk to my merchant agent, which will discover certain items, not all the items, and will also do commerce, will also do loyalty, will also have a logged in experience, will also basically get like cashback or whatever. Then they will basically have a language to talk to each other. Then they are not going to the website and bringing down the website. And that protocol is either MCP, but that's not, everybody will prefer that. There is another protocol being talked about called AP2. So we are suggesting AP2 is the protocol where you would talk to each other. So that's how we are thinking about user present, user not present, merchant sophistication, good agent or not a good agent. And then there are agent tokens which have cryptogram, which have authentication to make sure consumer is authenticated, merchant authentication is also done. And that's how we're going to solve the problem. If a fraud still happens, there is, and this is going more technical around this, the customer will also capture an intent as to this is what you tried to buy. And we will capture that in the payment network. So when there is a dispute happen, and this is this thing called hallucination, that you went in to buy green pair of socks, but red pair of socks arrived. So we will check to see in the intent that did you really order the green pair of socks and not the red pair of socks. And if there was a problem with the SKU, then there is a dispute resolution mechanism. So the intent was never ever done in e-commerce before. It will be done in the agentic commerce. Intent, and these three protocols. And the whole idea is, and we have our comms guy write a very nice line saying, make the invisible invincible. That's the whole idea. Because we want to make sure the fraud and the bad characters don't come and play that they would like to play. Very long answer.
Very, very interesting, Sandeep. I think I'm just moving to, see, we all have seen a lot of use cases for India, right? If you could also share some light on any use cases that you see for Bharat, you know, how AI can facilitate financial inclusion, more from a payment standpoint. I'm sure we have talked a lot about other sectors, but just from a payment standpoint, what use cases have you guys seen or are seeing developing to facilitate financial inclusion in India?
Get me, Kshama, so I believe the question is for me. Yeah, and I think that's really critical because you know, we have to serve both Bharat and India. And you know, at NPCI, we see this in 2 or 3 different buckets. And one of them is really about ensuring that we provide the best possible help, grievance redressal. So we recently launched our own small language model and again are running this in a pilot phase with 13 banks now. It's called UPI Help. It's totally natively developed within the country where for 3 use cases. It's an AI-based model where across these banks, and right now it's in English, whether it's for mandate cancellation, again, a huge point with customers, right? Customers end up giving mandates, but then at some point of time, they have to have the choice to be able to go and cancel the mandate. So they can do that now through UPI Help. They can also go and get any help regarding any queries, and the third part is grievance redressal. Now, all of this today, because we just rolled it out, is happening only in English. But the key financial inclusion comes with the language inclusion, right? Not everybody in our country is conversant with English, particularly when they are trying to deal with complex things like payments. So we are now making that multilingual. So if somebody has a problem with saying, oh, mera payment fail ho gaya, and not just in Hindi, maybe in Telugu, we are adding languages to that. So that is one element where, again, people will be more and more comfortable with digital transactions when they know that they can actually, in their own language, get the grievance redressal. And this is not just, you know, putting some, yes, natural language processing is important, but that's not just a front-end layer. It's end-to-end AI enabled, right from the, because the customer did a UPI transaction, he got some, you know, it's happening at a front end, but there's some bank at the bank, which bank did he use, which was the merchant bank, all of that gets solved. So that's one element of financial inclusion where we are trying to use AI. The second part is around what we already have, which is the 123 Pay, which is for feature phones, and how do we get, now AI and feature phones, 2 ends of the spectrum, right? But we are trying to work around conversational payments. Again, this happens to be where you do not have to do complex steps in the entire payment process, and how do you make it very, very easy for someone with the, it's not just the language, it is the dialects, it's the accents. You know, it's the classical thing, if you see, for example, Maps has now introduced voice, right? And I was going to RBI, and actually you tell the person that, oh, Starbucks dal dijiye. The guy is trying to, on the phone, Google Maps, trying to say, Starbucks, and Google Maps is not able to understand, and finally you have to really enter it in. So how do you get conversational payments which can understand the context of where, and I think that's where AI has a huge, huge role to play. There's a lot of work that is happening around voice and language, but I guess the accuracy level, we are ourselves, we've been working on it for a couple of years, and We've achieved up to about 85% accuracy level, but to deploy it and fully deploy it in payments, we need like 99.99999%. So lots of use cases for us, for Bharat, and that will be the true potential of AI, actually.
Great. No, Mihir, if you want to add something to that, are there fintechs coming to you or even traditional NBFCs or banks to say, I want to create a conversational payment because a lot of my products go into some of these tier 2, tier 3 and rural markets. Have you seen some of those happening with you?
No, for sure. I think so I would say the use of AI for inclusion would be in two areas. One is the operations aspect, which Sohini and you alluded to, which is how do you service the end customer, right? How do you enable easy access for the end customer to raise a grievance, solve for a problem, enable a payment, etc. And that happens through conversation, but that can also happen through other access points. Like it could be a physical access point, but still it could be enabled through AI based on the kind of transactions and the kind of customer he or she has been, right? So I think operations, conversational payment is a big kind of innovation that is happening. A lot of agentic AI platforms are already there. They're trying to do a lot of conversational based payments. But the second element that I wanted to talk about is accessibility for Bharat. And when I say accessibility, it typically means that using the payments data, can I offer a loan to the customer who may have not got a loan in his or her entire life because he doesn't have a credit score, because he or she doesn't have access to formal means of credit. So with a phone data or with some kind of UPI data, can I enable that to a customer who will not get a formal line of credit, right? So I think accessibility is a big use case that I believe can potentially happen with the use of AI, with the use of payments in the rural India. Also accessibility in forms of an insurance policy, right? Going beyond possibly a form of a wealth management product. It needn't be a fancy, but a small, like I have 5,000 rupees to invest, right? Every month, where should I put it, right? In terms of that. So small things, but accessibility, I think, is a big focus area that can come up going forward.
No, very interesting. I think that whole data can be used to underwrite that customer for a wealth product or an insurance product or a payments product. So very
already happening for merchants, but I'm talking more from a customer
standpoint.
Cost.
Understood. I think we have 5 minutes left. I'll just ask maybe one other question, which is, there's a very overhyped world that, everyone uses in AI, and I'm going to ask that question again, is we all talk about hallucinations in AI, right? Neither accuracy is, for different projects, you have reached a 60% to an 85% kind of an accuracy, but that's not something that you can deal with, right? Like you've gone ahead and done the order, but like actually you got a red sock versus a blue sock. So how are people dealing with that? And is there a timeline to it? Are there areas where hallucinations have been fixed? Are there areas where we are still far away from it? So would love for any of you, maybe Sandeep, if you want to start with that.
Yeah. See, because all this AI is built on models which are backed by data. Where is the data? The data is very Western in nature. The data is very white, men-driven. The data is very white, middle-aged, men-driven. Okay? So if you ever try to find out what's a good place, I actually looked for this. I wanted to go to Sapa in Vietnam. I said, how do I go from Hanoi to Sapa in Vietnam? ChatGPT should be able to tell me. It can't tell me because there's no data. So, and you can get any information of where to go in London and New York or whatever. So it's a very middle-aged, white, men-biased data. And that's the reason it will tell you that, people were caught by, proctors cheating in an environment where people had, disorders with vision or whatever, because of the hallucination which existed. So how do you remove those biases, whether it's gender bias, racial bias, or whatever those biases are? So the quality of these LLM, SLM, or whatever they are, it needs to be more inclusive, it needs to be better, it needs to include Asia, it needs to include India. That is not there, and that's the worry. Right? And you could create these SLM and LLMs within your own enterprise, and it will do better results, and you can say, aha, the answers look great, but the efficacy will not come in till you actually have much better quality data as an input, because the quality of the data is not suited for this part of the world.
Bang on, and if I take that argument, extend that a little bit, I think there are ways in which, there are textbook ways in which hallucination can be addressed. So there is stuff that you can do around the entire RAG models. There's architectural ways. There's obviously the data content and the context, both of them. I think two important things, and I say this more from an India context, I think it is really important that there is a whole lot of work, and actually there is already work happening with the government's focus, with what, the frameworks that are being released even by the regulator, that we have to build very context-specific models. And maybe there is a requirement. That's why the SLM that we built, which we are now actually converting to an LLM, but that's the first step. It's very important to build something for the context. If that same, like the example that I gave you, maybe that's going to work much better for pink pasta sauce than moong dal ka halwa, because of the fact that that much data is not available and the context is not there, and then the accent will go wrong, and I might end up making gulab jamun instead of the halwa. So that piece needs to be resolved with the context, and there is a huge requirement for building, I think, at least for sovereignty, for the context, native models, and purpose-built for specific solutions. We don't, yes, of course, for something, what you have right now, and all of us, when we think AI, we think ChatGPT, we think of, Perplexity, Gemini. Yes, those are great for the overall, when you want to go in, they're almost today's equivalent of what browser was. Many people, if we do just a show of hands here, many people have stopped going to the browsers, right? Now you just go to your, whichever model that you use, and you ask the questions. That's different from how you're going to apply it in businesses. So that whole hallucinations, coming back to your question, Kshama, I think it needs to be very context specific. There are architectural issues which will get resolved in the overall thing, but data, content, context, what you need to build. And then there's the fourth element, which will again be super important, not just for India, but for every other place, is this feedback loop that will be created with human intervention. Because you can keep waiting for the model to keep getting intelligent, or you can actually build the right level of human intervention through either supervision or correcting it, which will, so it's a cycle. It's going to take some time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. I think the TV telling me time is up, but I'll just maybe open it up for questions. If audience have any questions, maybe we can take one or two questions from there.
Thanks. Regarding the context-driven applications, I think it is a very important question, and the application has to have a context-related output. The output has to be, context-related. And you said it was somewhere about 80%, right? Context-driven application.
Can you hold the mic close?
You have spoken about the context-related applications, which I believe is the most important thing in a AI-based application. Because he got a red socks instead of a blue. So from that perspective, you said it is still not 100% an applicable case. So 80% is what you are looking at. So can you not fine-tune it?
Yes, of course. I think what, and Sandeep, please correct me if I'm overstating here. The point that he was raising was that those are the kind of issues that can happen, which is why you need to build the checks. And those checks need to be built at 3 levels. One is, what did the user, the intent that we are talking about, was the user really clear? Because what if the user says that, hey, I've now got red socks, but I think I ordered green ones. So it's important to capture the intent. Because there's the customer with the intent, there's the agent ensuring that the customer is giving the request clearly, which is why you have so many classes nowadays about teaching you how to generate the right prompts, right? because the agent is going to listen to what you're going to tell the agent. If you go about telling the agent, I think I want red socks, but maybe even blue ones will be fine, and then you get green ones, obviously that's a problem. So that entire chain, and yes, there needs to be this constant work, because the agent and then the merchant really understanding.
Yeah. So if I can step in, so it's just not for dispute resolution also, there is delegation of the authority, right? So let me take a simple example. If you work for a company, which I think you do, and if you're going for business, you don't go to an airline site and book your corporate travel. You basically ask your travel agency, who then will go and book a ticket on the airlines. Now, the travel agency, the airline will trust the travel agency. The travel agency trusts you. So there is this contract between you and the travel agency and the airline. That is not captured anywhere. Now we are capturing that intent.
So it will be done.
The delegation of the transaction.
So it is possible to have 100%.
Yes, it is possible. We'll get there.
Yeah. Because accuracy is must. Going for even scientific or machine applications, intelligent machines, that is what I'm looking at from various perspectives, not necessarily only e-commerce.
Let's talk offline. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, I was talking from various kinds of applications for context-driven applications. Not necessarily the e-commerce based, but also for machine or intelligent machine-based systems.
That's right. So same level of delegation, same level of capture of a
because it has to be 100%. In various other applications, you cannot have a variable of about even 1%.
That's right. So I'll explain you the whole framework. Maybe we meet offline. So the intent.
Thanks.
The intent could be there, and then when the transaction is complete, it becomes a mandate. Because not every intent needs to complete into a transaction. And you're absolutely right that actually it may not be related to just commerce. It could be related to other activities, just like a smart contract does on a blockchain.
There are many applications. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause for our panelists and a wonderful moderator for this illuminating conversation. From infrastructure to intelligence, it is clear that payments are no longer just transactional. They're strategic, data-rich, and increasingly AI-augmented. I would like to invite on stage Mr. Manish Kumar Gupta, Urban Unsecured Assets, Payments and Digital Partnerships at L&T. And I request our panelists and our moderator to kindly remain on stage. Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Malhotra, I would request all four of you to kindly remain on stage. Thank you. And now I invite Mr. Manish Kumar Gupta, Urban Unsecured Assets, Payments and Digital Partnerships at L&T Finance, to felicitate our esteemed panel with their mementos. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Give it up for them. Thank you so much.